Elizabeth Bathory was the most sadistic woman in history. Stories about her cruel punishments will make your knees shiver. This female serial killer sucked the soul of every person she came across and was a vampire who found some kind of joy in torturing innocents. Why did she target women and children? What kind of punishments did she use on them before their death? In 1560, Elizabeth Bathory was born in Hungary to Baroness Anna Bathory and Georgi Bathory VI. The Bathory family married their family members. This brought several genetic disorders and mental illnesses to their generation. Elizabeth suffered epileptic seizures and migraines when she completed 4 years of age. When she turned 6 years old, she started watching public executions. There was this one time a gypsy was beaten up and sewn into the stomach of a horse for kidnapping children. Elizabeth watched the horrendous act with curiosity and joy. In 1574, Elizabeth gave birth to a child. She had a relationship with a peasant whose child she gave birth to. The peasant was brutally killed, and she received a strict warning to refrain from such immoral acts. Later on, she was married to Count Ferenc Nadasdy. The wealth and power of her family increased with this marriage. She gave birth to 7 children named Anna, Orzolia, Catalin, Paul, Andras, Miklos, and Georgi. Bathory developed a strange likeness towards torture. Her targets were women and children. Her husband gifted her a torture chamber for her to murder people. The Blood Countess used several methods to torture her victims. She used to insert needles into the nails of her victims and sew their mouths together. She poured honey all over the naked bodies of girls and tied them down. They were all attacked by bees and ants. Every single one of them had a painful death. After the death of her husband, she started abducting girls who were peasants. She believed that no one would come in search of them. She bit off flesh from the body of these girls and bleed them to death. She cut their body and soaked herself in their blood. She felt happy and content by executing such heinous crimes. She even made a girl cook chunks of flesh from her body and eat it while Elizabeth watched and enjoyed it. One of her methods of torture was to freeze the body of young girls and watch them die. She also cut the body of the girls and hung them from the ceiling. She burned the face of the pretty servant girls and put hot iron coins on them. She made different cuts on their body and let them bleed to death. She showed no mercy and affection. Despite being a mother, she tortured these young girls to death. She even cut off their tiny fingers and laughed at them as they cried in pain. Her family was quite influential, and most of her crimes were never reported. In 1610, Elizabeth began craving the blood of noble girls. She started abducting these girls and put them in the torture chamber. This infuriated local nobles, and their concern was heard by King Matthias. Bathory had a few cohorts who helped her in executing these murders. They were all caught and put on trial. Elizabeth was the only 9 who escaped the execution. She was put in an enclosed room in the castle. It was filled with darkness, and she was given timely meals and water. She was not allowed to get out. There was a slot for air passage. Within a few years, Bathory died. Her death was not equivalent to the torture she gave to young women and girls. Her act disrupted many families, and they lost their loved ones. She was given many opportunities to reform, but she chose this violence. Many believe that Bathory did all these crimes to bathe in the blood of young girls. From this pattern of kidnapping, she chose young women and girls who were in their youthful years. Maybe Elizabeth did all this in the belief that she will be able to regain her beauty by soaking herself in the blood of these girls. Have you watched the movie titled Dracula? Well, the movie was inspired by the life of Elizabeth Bathory. She used to suck blood from the body of virgin girls. She bite off their flesh and suck their blood. She drank it with much taste and joy. She uses to keep a diary where she wrote the names of all the girls she murdered. Which torture method of Elizabeth do you find the most heartless? Do you see any similarities between Elizabeth and Dracula? Let us know in the comments.